Subramaniam Shankaran from IEEE. So in this video, we are kickstarting the domain 1 of CISSP. Join me for this journey for your complete CISSP training videos. Okay. Now, what is information security? Now, what is security basically? Security is to secure the assets or protect the assets. If you want to protect the assets, then you need to know from whom you are trying to protect the asset. Okay. If you want to know from whom you are trying to protect the asset, you want to identify the user. Okay. So there are two entities involved in the security. One is actually called as a subject, the other one is the object. Securing the object from unauthorized subject to the security, as simple as that. Okay. Now there are subjects could be a human, subjects could be a machine. Okay. So I'll tell you how it can be. For example, when I'm trying to access a web server, okay, I'm the subject in web server becomes an object. Okay, in fact, the data within the web server, okay, all these things are inherited, okay, as an object security or object protection. Now, the subject could be an individual, subject could be a group, or subject could be a system. Okay, group as a as in based of the let's say the group based security or role based access control or group based access control or attribute based access controls, etc. So we anyway have a domain called identity and access management separately, in which we are going to have a deep dive onto all these things. So controlling the access between the subject and object is the information security. Now the object has got what is called as a classification. So it could be a top secret secret. We saw all this classification as a part of the asset security domain. So the object has got a classification and the subject will have what is called the clearance. In many of the countries, if you want to do a VAPT, especially in the UK, if you want to do a penetration testing, okay, so you cannot do a penetration testing unless otherwise you have got security clearance. The security clearance basically like your the verification on your employment records, the criminal records, etc. So if you have a clean sheet, okay, then you can do a VAPT. Excuse me, you can do a VAPT. So a lot of countries have got that. In fact, when I was doing an assessment for Dubai airports, okay, I was doing an audit to the physical security lady, and she in fact told me, at the previous day there was actually an employee who was working for them for nearly 6 months. Okay, he has to be sent home because there was a criminal record that they discovered during the background verification. Okay. Now, in this case, you can ask me a question: why was the background verification not done before the employment? But let's not get onto that particular debate. Okay, so it's a clearance. Okay, that we actually need to have. Okay, that was actually missing in this particular case, and it's not a clinch. So he was actually sent home. So the subject will have what is called the clearance, and object will have a classification. Okay, the mapping of the subject to the object is all the access control matrices. Okay. Now, what is that we are trying to protect in the object? Okay, it's called a data. Okay, when data becomes disclosed or the data becomes modified or the data becomes destroyed, okay, data is destroyed. Okay, we say we have got a security incident. So we have the tenets of information security, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability are called the tenets of information security. Opposite of confidentiality is disclosure. That's why we sign what is called as a non-disclosure agreement as an employee for the organization or a contractor or a vendor, blah, 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 whatever it is. Okay, and if the data is actually modified, then we call that as an integrity protection. Okay, so it's again the integrity has been, it is not maintained. Okay, if the data is destroyed, that means it's not available. So opposite of confidentiality is disclosure, opposite of integrity is alteration, opposite of availability is destruction. CIA, DAD, that is opposite. That is against the CIA, is what you can actually say. Okay. Now, the confidentiality is actually implemented by identification, authentication, authorization, and then the encryption. Integrity is implemented by identification, authentication, authorization, and then the hashing. And availability is identification, authentication, authorization, and then the backup. So, irrespective of whether it's encryption or hashing or the backup, okay, so it's all, the identification, authentication, authorization is what is required for maintaining the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, if you look at the encryption, it's a preventive control. So we want to have the categories of control discussed later. And the hashing will not prevent a modification, but hashing will ensure If the data is modified, you can detect it. Okay. And what about the backup? Okay. Backup will not prevent the destruction, but if at all the data is destroyed, then you can restore it from the backup. Okay. So it's all what is a recovery control, hashing is a detective control, and encryption is actually a preventive control. We are going to have the categories of the control discussed later, in which we will deep dive onto all this. So confidentiality, integrity, availability. So the principle by which you are maintaining the data as a secret is a confidentiality. Principle by which you maintain the data without any modification from the unauthorized user. Authorized user doing an unauthorized change, and unauthorized user doing the change. Okay, so these both needs to be prevented. Availability, ensure that okay only the authorized person can destroy the data, especially during your archival cycle or according to the GDPR. You cannot hold the data for more than the time stipulated, then you need to actually destroy it. Okay, that should be done by the authorized people. Okay, even the backup it should be destroyed. Okay, in case of the GDPR. Now let's look at the other concept: authenticity, possession, and utility. This was a part of Parker and Hexer. Okay, Parker suggested this. Authenticity is the trustworthiness of the source. Is it from the authentic source? Okay. For example, in January, when I receive an email, you got 100% hike. I will not believe it. Okay. Nobody's going to give me more than 10%. Okay. 10% is huge. Okay. At least I had not been a very good employee in many of the organization. Okay. So 100% for sure, no. If I'm going to receive it, I will look at the source. Who has actually sent it to me? I'll go to them and verify. Is it sure that are you serious that you're paying me 100% hike? Maybe positive or negative, I don't know. Okay, we should discuss that. So authenticity is to ensure that the data is actually from a genuine source. Okay, possession. Who has got the data? Now, I add something to it. Okay, what is the possession? Possession is the data. Possession is access to the data also. Okay, for example, in case of a ransomware attack, the data is with you, but the key for decrypting the data is with the hacker. Okay, the hacker is possessing the key, which is the control to read the data or manage the data. Okay, so possession is the data, possession is control to the data as well. Utility, the usefulness of the data. In the same ransomware incident, if your environment has been hit with a ransomware attack, okay, data is all encrypted, you cannot utilize the data. So utility for the data is actually not there. Yeah. The confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, possession, and utility, they all form a part of Parker and Hexet. Okay, data states. Now, so there are a few more principles: non-repudiation, accountability, and source origin authentication. What is the non-repudiation? The doer of a transaction, for example, I have deleted a file from the server. I should not be in a position to deny the fact that I have deleted it. How is that possible? I'll have a unique ID or to multi-factor authentication. Okay, if the user ID and password, I can say that somebody has sniffed the password and a shoulder stuffing attack. But the multi-factor authentication, nobody can compromise. Okay, all the three factors, right? So non-repudiation is to ensure that okay, I have done a transaction. I should not be in a position to deny my participation in the transaction or as a doer of the transaction. Accountability, taking the ownership for the activity. So if it's going to be a unique ID, you can you can associate the ownership, or you can pass on the accountability to that particular user account. But in case of a generic account, the accountability cannot be established. Okay, so the generic account okay can repudiate and also not own the accountability. What is source origin authentication? Authenticity. We discussed this on the last slide. Now, the data states, okay, data at rest, data in transit, data in use. What is the data at rest? Data is going to be on storage, internal storage, external storage, backup. Remember something, security follows the data. In many of the organizations, what I have actually found is the organization will take an utmost care to ensure that your data online is taken care. But the data is taken offside on the tape. Okay, they don't the amount the importance of the data is not that equivalent as what you're going to have it online. So the firewall is not there, IDPS devices are not there. Okay, the antivirus is not there. Okay, your data alone is traveling outside your network. Okay, now, again, we will discuss about the physical, technical, and their administrative controls. But what I'm saying, the data address is also the data in the backup tapes. What are the data in transit? Okay, data which is in the network, internal network, external network, wireless, wired network. If it is on move, then we call the data in transit. Okay, if it's going to be HTTP, then HTTP plus PKI becomes a HTTPS. If it's going to be an FTP, FTP plus PKI is going to be FTPS. Okay, without the the public key infrastructure, implementing the network security is next to impossible. What is the data in use? Okay, data is data onto the memory. Okay, so there were times when we were discussing about the data which is data onto the memory cannot be encrypted because otherwise you can process it. But we have something as the homomorphic encryptions. Homo is single and morph is form. Okay, so you can process the data without decrypting it. Okay, it's called the homomorphic encryptions. Now, there are three different types of controls: physical, technical, administrative. So the physical control is to ensure that okay, your data processing facility or data is not impacted by the natural calamity of the intruder. So you need to ensure that the site selection is very much important to for your data center so that it's not prone for the natural calamities. But in spite of all that, okay, something actually happens. You cannot say so something did not happen for so many years doesn't mean that it will not happen. Right? Everybody dies only once. Okay, so you cannot say that somebody has not died so long, so he will never die. No, that doesn't happen. Okay, even if you're going to say the low seismic zone, so far things have not happened. Okay, there's always a possibility it will happen. So you need definitely plan for your BCPDR. Okay, so physical security is to ensure that the natural calamity does not wash out the facility or will not impact the data processing facility or the data, okay, as such in the data at rest, data in use, and data in transit. Again, also to ensure the intruders are kept at the bay. So you're securing your infrastructure against the intruder also. Okay, what are technical security? Technical security is implemented by the hardware, softwares, etc. So infiltration of the malicious traffic and exfiltration of sensitive data. Okay, all these things needs to be secured. Okay, infiltration of the malicious traffic shouldn't happen. Exfiltration of the sensitive data should also not happen. Okay. Again, securing the infrastructure for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Again, the DDoS attacks, etc. What is the administrative control? The security awareness session, documentation, policy document, procedure document, guidelines, etc. They all come under the administrative control. Security awareness session. In fact, wherever possible, all the three controls should be implemented. For example, if you are carrying a tape to the offsite location, the tape you're going to carry on a turtle box, okay, and the turtle box of physical security and the tapes should be the data on the tape should be encrypted so that the confidentiality is also maintained. That is the technical control. There should be a label on the tape saying that it's a proprietary property of so and so organization, so you should not mishandle it. Okay, that is the administrative control. Wherever possible, all the three controls should be there to ensure that your data is secure. Okay, categories of controls. Okay, deterrent control. Deterrent is actually warning. Okay, let's say there's a proprietary property of so and so, or this system belongs to this organization. Okay, you click on OK, then you are on user ID and password. Okay, so deterrent control is only discourage you, will not stop you. Beware of dogs. It doesn't mean that you cannot open the door. Okay, open the gate. You can open the gate. If you're not able to open the gate, that means there's a preventive control. Preventive control will stop you. User ID and password is a preventive control. Corrective and recovery, well understood by an antivirus incident or virus incident, sorry. So if the system is infected with the virus, first thing that you will actually do is to isolate the system from the network. Okay, that's actually called the corrective action. Then you're going to update the antivirus signatures and run the scan or install any other, the antivirus. Okay, will do a scanning to ensure that you're cleaning the system of virus. And the recovery is to ensure that you are putting it back onto the network. Okay, so it's a workable condition. So corrective and recovery action. Okay, they're like, one follows the other. What is the detective and compensating? Detective and compensating is to do a root cause analysis. Okay, detective CCTV cameras, detective control of the physical security. CCTV is also deterrent control of the physical security. If you don't have a camera, okay, just like a toy you're using it. Okay, people look at it, they'll think that it has got a camera. They will not do anything which they are not supposed to. Okay, so CCTV camera is also deterrent control, and if it's actually with the camera and recording it, it's a detective control, deterrent and detective, depending upon how you're going to actually use it. What is the compensating control? The primary control fails. Okay, the compensating control will actually take over. Compensating control is discussed in multiple scenarios. Okay, for example, if you want to go for risk acceptance, okay, risk will not be accepted, dispensation will not be approved if the compensating control is not available. Okay, so there is one compensating control. The other compensating control, the primary control is not in a position to secure you. That's why you have two firewalls. If one firewall is not in a position to prevent the intrusion, the second firewall of different type will prevent the intrusion. So if you look at the organization, the antivirus in a server will be different and antivirus in the client will be different. If the client antivirus is not in a position to clean the virus, okay, the one on the server will actually clean it. So the compensating control is a practice in the organization to ensure that the primary control is not able to cope up with the intrusion or maliciousness. The secondary control will support it. Okay, that is actually called the compensating control. So, in end of this particular video, stay connected for the next one to deep dive into the CISSP. This is Subramaniam Shankaran from IEEE. Join us for the winning CISSP training program. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye bye.